Coming up on show 399, Bill Ford says the electric Mustang crossover will, and I quote, go like hell. Kia reveals the new Soul Electric and a new name for Europe with more battery options. And Fiat Chrysler spending $4.5 billion to build electrified cars in the US. Well, those stories and many more, got 7 in total today. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, in fact, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. It's Tuesday, the 26th of February. It's Martyn Lee here, and I've been through every EV story I can find today and picked out the ones to save you time. We're on location still this week. We will be all the way through until Thursday, I think, actually. We're visiting friends on the island of Malta at the moment, and so thoroughly enjoying our time over here. Saw some Twizys today, the Renault Twizy. I think that first came around in 2009, 2010, and I think they still look cool on the roads, of course, not technically a car, technically a quadricycle. They have them for hire from tourists around here. They can do up to 50 miles an hour, but the ones that I was following in the car today was certainly not doing 50, more like 5, slightly frustrating. However, seeing loads of those around, I've been looking into getting hold of a Renault Zoe hire car as well. The company that hires them out seem to be really popular here in Malta. Everywhere that I went today, I saw sort of 1 or 2 on the side of the road parked in their own spaces. Really interesting. And that's for locals, by the way. That's a car sharing scheme using Renault Zoes. Hello as well to Nigel. Nigel Mallet says in his email to me today, I've been enjoying your podcast for a year now, and I hear that you have come to Malta. We are very well served by the Facebook group Electric Vehicles Malta Community, who try to help. If you have time, you can check out a China import found on Facebook, the Bodo, B-O-D-O, Bodo electric vehicle, which is available here in Malta. Thank you very much, Nigel. Always good to hear somebody who is indeed on a tiny island that I am on, enjoying a slight vacation at the moment. So let's get on with the news then. Oh, thank you as always, by the way, to myev.com. Certainly not available in Malta yet. Wouldn't it be cool if one day they are? But for now, they're in the USA. If you're buying and selling and learning about EVs, then check out myev.com. They also set our question of the week every week, and we'll get onto a new one at the end of the show for you to take part in. Well, Bill Ford has been commenting on the electric Mustang crossover style car, and Ford is dead serious about its electrification plans. They want to have a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or an all-electric version of every model. In addition, it's going to launch a number of new models as well with electric powertrains. One of those is going to be the Mustang-inspired crossover. So think crossover body, slightly higher, slightly taller, a very popular shape that's around at the moment. Scheduled to arrive on the market sometime next year, says Anthony Karr in a brilliant article for Motor1.com. I've been searching through the articles of Motor1.com today to find you these stories. Emphasizing Ford's new strategy, the automaker's executive chairman Bill Ford said the Mustang-inspired electric crossover is, and I quote, going to go like hell. When we first started talking about electrification, there was this thought that there had to be a trade-off, he says. It was either going to be green and boring and no fun, or really exciting but burn fossil fuels, end quote. Bill Ford said that during a Crain's Detroit Business Newsmaker of the Year luncheon. Electrification has come to the point where you can do both, he says, and I'm glad that Ford have come to the realization eventually, by the way, perhaps a little later than some, that electric cars are better in every possible way than burning fossils. People who say the batteries don't last, yes they do. The people who say you can't go very far on them, well, try 500 kilometers. The performance, of course, kicks the butt of any fossil car for the same money. And so Ford getting on, finally, on board with that. Of course, they have their recent deal with the VW to help out. They're going to be licensing VW's electric powertrain. So that means Ford can jump several rungs up the ladder, although at a cost to them and to VW's benefit. Moving on to Kia, and a car that I really, really like is the Kia e-Niro, but we've heard recently that here in the UK at least, there's now a 12-month, at least 12-month waiting list. Many parts of Europe having to wait a long time as well, which is really frustrating because they make a great car. How is it in 2019 they just have totally messed up the ability to make enough of them to match the demand? But anyway, the next generation Soul EV. Now, the Soul isn't a style of car that everyone's on board with. I totally am, by the way. If you don't want an SUV or even a crossover SUV, but you want a smaller sedan-sized car, but of course it's got its own unique styling, then I can recommend the Soul, a great electric car from Kia, and it has a new name in the UK. It's called the e-Soul. I said e-Soul. It's coming to Europe, where sales begin by the end of this year. Pricing is going to be announced soon, says Mark Kane at Inside EVs. Kia's going to unveil their new e-Soul. I said e-Soul at the 2019 Geneva Motor Show very soon. The European version is going to be offered in two versions, unlike in the US. Now, the US only get the big battery version, but here in Europe, we're going to get the smaller standard range version, which is 39.2 kilowatt hours and a 100 kilowatt motor, and the long range version 64 kilowatt hours on the battery and 150 kilowatt motor. If you're thinking it sounds exactly the same as the Hyundai Kona, well, you'd be right. And the Kia e-Niro as well. Same battery sizes. Not necessarily, by the way. A lot of journalists I've seen, even from EV, like people who should know, saying, oh, they use exactly the same batteries as the Hyundais and the Kias. Be careful, because some of those come from LG Chem and some of them come from SK Innovation. Both South Korean companies. You know, the battery size is the same, but it's actually not true to say that the batteries are the same in all of those cars, by the way. And also the chemistry is slightly different, but I'm not going to get too bogged down on that right now. I could go super geek on you. In fact, I'm going to go super geek at the end of the podcast on new batteries, but, you know, if you're still with me, that's a good thing by the end of today's show. The long-range version does 280 miles. That is 452 kilometers. And I will do my very best, by the way, to always give you the kilometers version, because I'm aware that I tend to sometimes in shorthand use miles. And Jan Moraski, Jan emailed me 2 o'clock this afternoon to say, I'm a big fan of the podcast, but please remember to always do kilometers for your European listeners. So Jan, thank you very much. I will do. That's on the WLTP test cycle, by the way, for the long range. The EPA range is slightly less, about 243 miles. That's 391 kilometers. That's the long range version. As for the standard version, can't get it in the US, but you can in here in Europe. It is 172 miles or 277 kilometers on the WLTP test cycle. Well, the new battery that's going inside the Kia e-Soul, I said e-Soul, has got 25% higher energy density when the new powertrain is 30% more efficient than what they call Europe's best-selling electric car. So they're saying that the battery is better, the drivetrain, the powertrain is better than the current best car in Europe, which they don't name. And I wish they did, because actually there's two ways you can slice and dice this. Over 2018, over the year, last year, the Leaf sold the most amount of cars. But actually the current best-selling car, if you were to look at, say, a 3-month rolling average, the best-selling car in Europe at the moment is the Renault Zoe. So what are they comparing it to? Maybe I'm getting a bit too pernickety. Let's move on. The new electric Kia e-Soul, I said e-Soul, breaks with the CHAdeMO plug and has a CCS combo charging inlet for DC fast charging, and that famous phrase that Kia likes to use, when connected to a 100 kilowatt charger. Does it mean it will charge at 100 kilowatts? No, I think it means that you probably top out at about 72, 73 because of the pack voltage and the amps and the current that goes into it. And again, it's another thing that people get confused with because they love this phrase, when connected to a 100 kilowatt charger. Doesn't mean it'll do 100 kilowatts, but heck, you know, low to mid 70s is pretty fast charge speed. Let's move on to SEAT, and they're looking at the future of mobility with their own new idea. The problem I have, it looks very much like an old idea. I've mentioned it already, the Renault Twizy. The new SEAT has been announced today, and it is an electric quadricycle. SEAT taking a leap into urban micromobility, they say. They've done a presentation of the Minimo, which is what it's called, the Minimo at this year's Mobile World Congress. It's a concept car developed as a mobility platform. These are all very good press release phrases, by the way. Things like a mobility platform, company's vision for the urban mobility of tomorrow. The thing is, though, if you go and Google the SEAT Minimo, it looks the same to me as the Renault Twizy, which is about, 10 years old. SEAT's designers just gone, look, boys, copy that. We'll say it's new. People will believe us. I'm not so sure. They say that it has the dimensions of a motorcycle with the safety and comfort of a passenger vehicle, minimising the many frustrations of travelling around our cities. Yes, Renault worked it out 10 years ago. They called it the Twizy. It looked, to my eyes, I've only looked at a few pictures, it looks incredibly similar, but I'm sure in its own way it is different. Maybe better tech, because I think the Twizy had something like a 14 kilowatt hour battery, or did they update it? I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but anyway, go and have a look at the pictures. Right, let's move on to Fiat Chrysler. FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automotive, today announced a huge investment in electric vehicles. $4.5 billion being invested in their Michigan manufacturing facilities, including a new one in the city of Detroit, set to build an all-new 3-row full-size Jeep, and investment in 5 other plants. And the big news is all of their cars are going to have electrified variants. Says Jalopnik. Fiat Chrysler says it's Warren, JNAP, is that how I would say it? And the Mack assembly plants are going to crank out the plug-in versions of their cars, and there's going to be flexibility in all of their future plans to build full BEVs, full battery electric vehicles in the future. The CEO, Mike Manley, said in a quote that Fiat Chrysler plans to build at least 4 plug-in hybrid electric Jeeps. It makes sense if you're going to make those big Jeeps, put a big battery in there, either make it fully electric or make it a plug-in, stick a plug on the side, because that torque applied to all 4 wheels is just so good for Jeeps and off-roading vehicles. Let's talk about Byton. The electric vehicle startup Byton is unveiling its mass-produced model of the M-Byte in the middle of this year, which I think is amazing, because the M-Byte always looked more concept car than reality. The M-Byte, when we've seen the concept car, is that one, maybe you've seen pictures, maybe you can picture it, with the giant screen that runs the entire width of the dash. It begins behind the driver's steering wheel side, and it just runs the entire width of the car. And that's what got everyone talking, was this huge one single massive widescreen. The M-Byte concept was first shown at CES last year. It's got shorter front and rear overhangs, and the battery electric version gets more room for passengers, boasting a futuristic gene, says Inside EVs. It's got configurations like LED headlights and two-tone vehicle body and some trendy taillight clusters that go across the rear end, but it really is the inside that blows people's minds, and they say, Inside EVs say, it is going to be going into production this year. That is fantastic news. Why don't more people drive EVs at the moment? There are a bunch of answers to that question, but almost 3/4 of Americans see electric cars as the future of transportation, according to a new Volvo and Harris poll released today, says Eric at Green Car Reports. In the poll, which surveyed 1,510 drivers in the US, last October the survey was done. It included 250 EV drivers in that survey. 3/4 of them said electric cars are the future. Amongst the EV drivers, it was 80% agreed electric cars are just the future. But the biggest obstacle to why the current non-EV owners don't drive one, it wasn't range. They're happy with that. But it was cited as the available charging infrastructure. 61% of respondents said more infrastructure was the biggest thing stopping them putting their own money down on an EV. And it's one of those things that we moved recently, and we moved from a house where we had on-street parking and to a house with a driveway. And that makes a big difference. I've got to be honest. Off-street parking, we've got a garage, got a driveway, we've got loads of room to park the cars, and just having that space does make life easy. Does it mean you can't have an EV? If you don't have off-street parking, of course not. Plenty of people do, with bigger batteries these days, with faster charge speeds. Many people will do their weekly shop for an hour or two, charge their car fully, and then if they've got one of the new generation of EVs, they might never need to charge all week long. With no charging at home, it can be done, but more education is needed with the general public. Hey, let's finish off with getting a bit super nerdy, super geeky on batteries. According to Green Car Congress, the company 24M has just announced it's developed and delivered a new commercially viable high energy density battery for EVs. It uses a semi-solid lithium-ion battery design, so not solid state, and they've got this new energy density, which the current benchmark is 250 watt hours per kilo, and they're heading towards almost 400 watt hours. There's a roadmap to that. So that is fantastic. More energy in the same space is just such fantastic news for EVs. Increase the range, reduce the weight, wonderful. And of course, the argument always is you need to make it commercially viable, bring the costs down, and that'll be happening as well. I'll put a link to the show notes, article in the show notes, by the way. I mentioned our question of the week this week. If you'd like to let me know your thoughts, I would love to get your comments on email or in the comments sections of the various places. And it is this, set by myev.com. Where did you, or where will you, buy an EV from? Let's make a list of the best places that we can think of, the best sellers, the best dealers. Maybe there's a dealer or a specialist you know that specializes in only EVs. Tell me about them. I'd love to know. I'd love to create a roll call of honor, if you like. What are the best places, the best markets, the best dealers or companies who are helping you get into EVs? Please email me so you can fill me in. It's hello@evnewsdaily.com. That is hello@evnewsdaily.com. Thank you to 196 patrons of the podcast who fund this show to make it happen every single day, even when I'm on location in an echoey room like this in Malta, which is, I've mentioned it if you haven't heard earlier podcasts, if it sounds slightly echoey, I'm not in the toilet, but there's hard marble floors, hard surfaces. It's all designed to keep these places cool, because even though it's not too hot at the moment, it won't be long, and people will be staying indoors at midday and taking siesta and not going out at the heat of the day, because this island gets super, super, super hot. We're not far off somewhere like Libya and North Africa, so that's why I'm in this kind of environment. Well, if you'd like to get any of the old podcasts, the archive is online for free and always will be. Get the new ones by hitting subscribe, and you can get the show automatically each day on your podcast app of choice. And if I've missed a platform, I try and make this show totally platform agnostic. If there's somewhere that I can put this to make your life easier, let me know and I will. And you can hit subscribe to get the show easily. If you can share it as well, oh my goodness, you know that's like my oxygen. Is just, if you can ping this on to somebody who would love to listen. I can see the stats are going up, but I'm greedy. I always want more. So please spread the word, and we can tell more people about EVs and the brilliance of driving with clean, green, sustainable, fun power as well. In the meantime, come and say hi on the socials, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter by searching EV News Daily. Do have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.